Hello! So today it is day 9 and this episode is called Mother's Day. This day 1 year ago was Mother's Day in the UK. The night before there had been a lot of text messages where I had asked him to refrain from sending unhealthy and unhelpful text messages. I even explain in one of the text messages that I had set a boundary and it had been ignored. Boundaries at this point were a relatively new concept to me. I had had poor boundaries all my life, really. I hadn't realised that until this week, though. My husband had pushed my boundaries a lot and Mr. C had trampled all over them. I was learning that the uncomfortable feeling I had felt when he said certain things or it was suggested we conducted ourselves or our business in a certain way was in fact my boundary being overstepped. I was learning that agreeing to things just to keep the peace is actually a trauma response. And learning about boundaries and discovering what they look like and sound like and ways to uphold them is something that I do in more detail over the coming weeks. But at this time, I knew that is what he was doing, and I told him. But even when I called him out, he wasn't respecting my boundaries. He responded with self-pity and more attempts to divert the conversation in a way that was half about blaming me and half about trying to get me back. Eventually, with the conversation going nowhere and me keep having to explain that the messages were neither healthy nor helpful, I put my phone into airplane mode and I went to sleep. The next morning, I woke to 4 text messages, and these are them. The first message is saying that I haven't given him a chance to actually make any changes to his behaviour. Yet, we both know that in reality, he hasn't ever thought he really needed to change his behaviour, and also suggests that now I'm pregnant I should be giving him more of a chance. I think this could be quite indicative of how abusive men feel about you once you are pregnant with their child. You really do take on a possession-like status, carrying what they deem to be their property. And then some really quite disjointed thoughts, but absolutely no responsibility is taken in any of these messages, and to say that they are, well, haphazard and disjointed is a bit of an understatement. He is right though, not that he meant it to encourage or empower me, but I did just need me, and to heal, you just need you. Later on that morning, he called me to apologise, then he went on to act like nothing had happened and wished me happy Mother's Day. He asked if there was anything I needed. He said he had something for me and wanted to bring it over to the house. I didn't want him coming to my parents. My daughter was confused as it was, and him turning up with flowers and a Mother's Day card wouldn't have helped. The schools had closed because of coronavirus on the Friday before this, and we were on the verge of the first full stay-at-home lockdown on Mother's Day last year. The UK government had advised we didn't mix with anyone outside of our households, and so I suggested that I met him on a pub car park halfway between my mum and dad's and what is now his house. He wasn't keen and wanted me to go over to the house, but after what had happened earlier in the week, that wasn't going to happen. So I stayed resolute and we agreed to meet later that afternoon. I still had none of my possessions by this point. I kind of needed my passport and driving licence to attend an appointment to arrange universal credit. I had a lot of mixed feelings about claiming benefits, but since I was pregnant and I'd walked away from our business, I had no choice but to apply for support from the government. And what with everything that has happened with coronavirus since then, there is no way I could have arranged any sort of employment before I would have needed to take maternity leave. So in all honesty, everything worked out well. And I'm so grateful that we have this welfare support available, but more on that tomorrow. So I asked him to bring over my passport and driving licence, and to my surprise he said he would. I didn't allow myself to believe that he would actually give them to me until I had them in my hand. I'd even declared that I had no ID when I made the application, so I wasn't relying on him handing them over in time. But he decided to bring them, along with some flowers from the garage that still had the price on, and a card he'd scribbled in from The Bump. As is so often the case, gifts and gestures like this always have an ulterior motive when the person giving them is obsessed with power and control, and this was no different.